the idea of in a workplace that rest is lazy. And that's a very old paradigm. I do actually think that that paradigm is starting to shift a little bit. I don't know how widespread that shift is, but I can talk to you about like where I was in my career 10 years ago or 15 years ago and the notion of rest being lazy. I mean, I had supervisors who would be up emailing at 2:30 in the morning and the next day would wonder why you hadn't responded to them till 8 a.m. And it's like, I shouldn't really even be responding to you at 8 a.m. if my workday starts at 9 or 9:30. And the fact that you would have an expectation that I would be awake at 2:30 a.m. your time, but these started to become the flags that I paid attention to then every time I was in an interview process in the years that followed. So if I was on a recruitment panel and I heard somebody say something like, I'm making a choice between candidates, and I ask myself, which candidate would I want to run into at 2 o'clock in the morning in the hallway? My answer is none of them, because nobody should be at work in the office at 2 a.m. in the morning. And that is such an unreasonable expectation to set for this candidate that, mind you, has no idea what they're about to come into. And I didn't work on this team, but I thought to myself, goodness, if I could tell these candidates one thing, it would be careful what you're about to sign yourself up for, because you don't even realize what you're coming into. Another example was when I was talking to someone who was just launching a new program in an organization. They were already, a successful person within the field. And I remember talking to them about the possibility of maybe working with them. And they said these words to me. They said, you know what? Like, I'm not married and I don't have any kids. So I can literally like dedicate every waking moment I have to this work. And I think maybe they felt like that was a statement of encouragement. And for me, that was an indication where I was like, oh, that is not for me. Because actually, at the time I was married and I do have a family, and I don't want to spend every waking moment of my time working on any of this. I will give you a certain amount of my time. And I want to be able to determine how much time that is based on how much time it takes for me to complete with excellence what you are requesting from me. And one day that might take 4 hours. One day it might take 2 hours. One day it might take 8 hours. The point, though, is to have the trust, agency, and flexibility to know and determine that. So base it on the outcome I give you and not how much time, right? FaceTime, desk time, logged in time, that you feel like you're just counting down. Even that idea of like how your compensation is tied to a certain number of hours, right? And that idea that you have to be productive for a very large part of your day. And though, mind you, overtime is then like the dirty word, right? You can never ask for compensation, to be paid overtime, but you're expected to work overtime, and you certainly can't work undertime. And so it's a really interesting experiment, because if I were to think about our team and I were to start calculating the amount of hours that I have an expectation that we're actually really working between our flex hours and our My Day Fridays and the retreat weeks we take, etc., a lot of people who come from an older paradigm would look at that and be like, well, when do you get any
When do you
work?
work? Yeah.
When do you work? Do you
Do you
you
even
guys
work?
even work? And it's like, okay, but look at our programs that we've delivered previously. Look at the level of excellence that our work has. And sure, this is me speaking on our own behalf, but we have all of the metrics to prove it over the years of the organization, that is currently winding down. But the point was that 4 or 5 year experiment and working that way actually proved that you can have highly productive staff that are producing at high levels of excellence with all the freedom, flexibility, and trust in the world. And because you have that freedom and that flexibility, and it provides so much spaciousness and grace in your life, you're not going to actually mess it up. This idea of the social contract being based on a common denominator that people will cheat or disappoint is actually a notion that I reject. Because if you go to it by saying, wow, you have this, why wouldn't you want to produce excellently? Why wouldn't you want to advance in this role? Like, why wouldn't you want to give it your best? Because the conditions that are being provided to you are the ones that say, I value you, I see you, I recognize your accomplishments, I cheer you on and I trust you. And if that's not what helps you flourish and thrive, then I'm not sure what will. But most organizational and corporate cultures are not actually wired that way. They are wired much more with the penalization and punishment approach than they are with the reward, nourish, and in fact set free approach that I think has underpinned our culture for so many years and frankly produced extraordinary results.